We're back again with another episode of the First Issue Club podcast. We're the weekly comic book podcast that keeps you apprised to all the relevant good news coming out about comics, but most specifically, first issues. They're your gateway into the experience as a whole, a threshold to pass into new stories. And what's more exciting than dipping your toes in a new adventure?
Nothing.
Nothing at all.
Literally nothing.
By the way, I'm Mike DeStacy.
Oh, and I'm Budget King.
And that's Budget King. We're without the lick tags again. No Caitlin or Greg.
They're in moving hell.
They are. My tip to everyone, hire movers.
You only live once.
Yep.
If you move yourself, you're taking off a year of your life.
Yeah.
It's worse than smoking.
Don't ask your friends to move for you. You're too old for that.
You are too old for that.
It
Even
sucks.
if you're 16.
Your friends resent you.
Yeah. If you're 16 and you're moving out of your house because you're mad at mom and dad, hire a mover.
Who knows where they're going to move your stuff to because you've got no place to go. But hire them.
Yeah.
You can figure out the money later.
Give movers a job.
A lot of them take cash at the end. That's how they prefer to be paid. So they'll do the work without getting paid up front.
Yeah.
Then what?
Are you suggesting dining and dashing movers?
Kind of.
If you're 16.
Well, the thing is, they know where you're going to be staying for a little bit at least.
Yeah. They probably then just move your stuff that they just moved into their car.
However much they can fit into their four-door sedan.
Hey, what books are we covering today?
This week we're getting into Getting It Together on Image Comics and American Ronin on AWA's imprint Upshot. Very excited about those. First, we're going to hit you with some comic book news. A couple Fat Boys came out this week.
Big Fat Boys.
Some landmark issues. We've got Amazing Spider-Man 850. This always bothers me with some of the legacy numbering.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's actually like Spider-Man number 49 in this run. And then they're making a huge deal out of 850. But they're double dipping with the next issue, man. You're going to hit us with Amazing Spider-Man 50. The next issue that comes out.
Do normal people care about 50s?
They're always treated like a landmark issue with like extra covers and stuff like that.
But I think that's just a way to make money. People really care about the double zeros, though. The 800s and
Yeah.
the 900s. Thousands. Can you imagine? Spider-Man's at 1,000. You'll probably take off work.
Will that be the first Marvel comic to like actually legacy numbering hit 1,000?
So what was Marvel 1000 then?
Marvel 1000 was nothing. There's no like Marvel comic
book. There's probably a book that's made it further, I bet. But I don't know what it was.
Well, the thing is, Fantastic Four was probably, but there were some hiatuses there. So I don't know. They might have fallen behind. Amazing Spider-Man's always gone on.
Mm-hmm. So?
That's my old man qualm with Spider-Man 850.
Thanks for that.
Very old head take. Batman 100 was the other big one that came out this week. But that was a really fun read. That was the conclusion to Joker War by James Tynion. We've been loving that run. It was an exciting end to the series, but I'll say same old Batman, same old Joker. No major repercussions that I can be like, oh, rad. While we were going through, there was like a long Joker monologue through the middle of it, and I was like, oh shit, something major is about to happen. And the crux of the story, if you don't mind me kind of spoiling it,
please do,
is that Harley Quinn decides to put Bruce Wayne in a situation wherein he has to save either her or the Joker. She strapped bombs to the two of them.
Okay.
And she takes off running. And she's like, I know it's in your DNA to save somebody.
Very Harley Quinn.
Save me then.
I love that.
You've got time to save one of us, right?
Was there a first appearance in the book?
Very briefly. I would count it as a cameo.
Okay.
Ghostmaker makes like a very brief appearance.
And he's just another
in,
villain.
An epilogue. He claims to be like the next hero of Gotham, but like that's what every Gotham villain says.
Okay.
So it could go either way.
Is James Tynion going to stay on the run after this?
Yes, he is.
And so would you say Joker Wars is going to be remembered as one of the runs that's highly talked about for Batman runs?
Yeah, I think just because it introduced and got rolling with Punchline.
Yeah.
Otherwise, and outside of that, I mean, great run among the many Batman great runs, but nothing that stuck out to it to make it like a legendary thing outside of Punchline.
Okay.
In my opinion.
We got other news.
Yeah.
So New York Comic Con is happening this week.
Mm-hmm.
When this comes out, it will have happened, but I'm going to tell you about some of the panels that are going on at Comic Con.
Okay.
I've been to New York Comic Con 3 times. It's great, and I feel like they're really doing this digital version of it pretty big, or they're trying to at least.
We've seen a couple digital conventions leading up to this that have, in my opinion, fell a little flat for me.
Yes. I think what New York Comic Con learned a little bit is that they'll break the news on Twitter, but you can't really do it in the same way that like you get the live reactions from people.
Right.
It's just not. There's never any good live reactions. So just make it watchable, watch-worthy, and then that's where you'll get a really good New York Comic Con.
Right.
Is what I think, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But here's some stuff that's gonna happen. The Sandman that got released on Audible by DC is gonna have a live read with Neil Gaiman.
How much? Like he's just going to do an excerpt of it?
I guess they'll just do it because it's the way that it's also done in Audible. They'll just do it live.
Weird. So they've got characters playing different parts in the Audible read.
I listened to it.
It's not just a single reader.
Yes.
Interesting. Okay.
It's like an audio play, and I listened to it, and that was jarring to me. Being a big audiobook fiend, I didn't actually like the play nature of it.
Yeah, it's not typically like that. When you read and listen to an audiobook, I always say read. Whatever, same
I say
difference.
read
You're
too.
consuming a book,
Right.
It's fine.
Is it that much worse? Should I get dinged that all the books I read are actually on Audible?
There are so many elitists that take issue with people listening to a book. You're consuming knowledge and entertainment in a way that's conducive to 2020 lifestyle.
I read enough blogs and bullshit a day to equal a book.
Who cares if you're destroying trees in the process? You know what I mean?
This take needs to be hotter. I love that take. People should stop dinging me. So that happens. Same is going to be a read. Here's the thing. They could play the audiobook and lip sync it, and nobody would know the difference. So
think of the amount of talent. It's just Neil Gaiman being like, watermelon.
Watermelon. I'm sure they'll do some Q&A with Neil Gaiman and stuff like that. Okay.
Does everyone get the watermelon reference? Everyone knows that.
It's a church choir thing that you say when
if you don't know the lyrics.
Yeah. I think people know that.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of like animation releases that they're gonna like talk about. So they're gonna show Invincible for the first time, I think.
Oh, very cool.
Jurassic World, which is an animation that's getting a show.
I didn't know that.
Or I don't want to say cartoon, animated series. There we go.
I hope it's for kids.
It seems like it is. It looks like it is.
It better be.
Yeah. And then, okay, this is an interesting thing that I kind of just wanted to hit you up with. Do you remember when we went to C2E2 and literally before every single show was this like loud, insane looking, it's like an American anime show named Kipo?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
They must have paid so much money for the crazy amount of press it got.
We probably saw the preview for that 100 times.
Yeah.
I went and watched it.
Did you? I never saw it.
I loved it. It's like a really good show. So they're going to show season 2 of it. And it's like kind of even hard to explain, but essentially a post-apocalyptic world, which I'm a big fan of.
Yeah.
And just crazy stuff happens. So
all right.
We're seeing. Okay. Are you familiar with this thing called Fall Guys?
Can I just stop and say this is so fun for me to just be like battered with news hits one after another, rapid fire. Like this is the kind of content I want.
This is the content I like to bring.
Audience people, I'm excited for you. This is just like a blast for me.
Yeah, we should have a contest where somebody gets to fly in and we just news hit them.
Oh, they're gonna love that. You send us your cell phone first.
Yes.
You send it to us in the mail, and then we send you a plane ticket. That way, you're not consuming any news, and by the time you get to us, it's gonna be just
you're gonna die. Yeah, like
you're gonna be drowning.
It'll be better than an orgasm, I have to imagine, for them.
Yeah.
So back to news.
Comic books.
This is good takes though for people. They want to know.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with what Fall Guys is? Do you know? Have you heard about the video game? It's this epic video game where I think 100 people get in, and eventually, like, you're just platforming, and one person lives, right? And a bunch of Twitch streamers just, like, went all over this, and it went, like, fucking nuts, and it's really fun to watch.
It sounds fun because there's not potential for a ton of people to be like really great at it. You
Right.
know what I mean?
So there was a guy, a Twitch streamer, that was like got a beta and was like, I don't know, seemingly good at it, at least streamed at it, and he never won for like ever, and he finally won, and Twitter just lit up with like, it finally happened, and he goes crazy, he, like seems like he's gonna cry, and everybody's like sincerely like congratulating him.
Oh, I watched this thing the other day where a guy did a time record. Have you seen the like speed runs? Yeah, where like people take advantage of glitches in the game. And
there's a whole like there's a fundraiser that happens I think yearly.
Is there?
Where just like these like kids have played this game all year to do like a Donkey Kong Country 3 run in like 18 minutes.
Yes, I watched a video the other day of a guy beating Super Mario 64 in like 6.5 minutes.
Oh,
and just like his reaction and the comments that were like popping up at the bottom of the screen that were just like, oh my God, like, way to go, dude. This is making me like smile so big.
It's so much fun. I watched the Diddy Kong Racing, which doesn't seem like it would be that fun.
I barely even remember that game. It was like a Mario Kart ripoff. They were just trying to like port it.
But apparently like each level has a glitch break where you just like run your plane or your hovercraft into the wall and you just see gray screens until you finish.
Fun.
It was oddly satisfying. So Fall Guys is gonna have like a Twitch
like,
thing.
Where were we? I'm glad you're keeping track. Yeah. I was gonna say that's cool that they are still having events that you can actually interact with as part of the Comic-Con. They've had the chance to see other Comic-Cons try to do virtual and fail. Like, this is what's coming out of the world we're in.
It seems like it's going to be a little bit better than SDCC.
Yeah.
So
I would bet so.
And New York Comic Con has always been this. They said, SDCC is like where movie shit happens, like the big movie drops, especially like Avengers and then just big news. New York Comic Con is like, we're going to do everything else. They're really good at TV shit. They're really good at video game stuff. And they do a lot of comic stuff, like really good comic stuff. So it's pick your bag. All right, we have done the news. We cooked the news.
Yeah, we did.
Let's get this podcast
started. First comic up for us to discuss today is Getting It Together on Image Comics. It was co-created and co-written by Omar Spahi and Sina Grace. Quite a duo. I think they've been longtime friends. Omar Spahi wrote for TV animation and a handful of comic books. Sina Grace, club favorite.
I love Sina Grace. I've already tweeted at him, and he already liked the tweet beforehand. So
doesn't that like tickle some part of your brain where you're just like, someone I'm a fan of liked a thing?
Yeah, he's so great, and this is the perfect comic for him to write.
Oh, it was so good. Well, we're getting ahead of ourselves.
Sorry. Yes.
In this comic, we've got a lead. His name is Jack, and he's basically trying to navigate tensions between his best friend and his sister, who have just broken up. For me, it was personally super refreshing to read something that like wasn't high sci-fi or superhero or anything. This was like reading
Scott Pilgrim for adults.
Less so. This was like reading like a script for an episode of Sex and the City.
Right. Or is like friends who actually have sex.
Yes.
Yeah.
Friends with sex.
Yeah.
So which leads me to like some of the covers for the book were homages to TV shows. Like the A cover was the group in front of like a fountain with umbrellas, right?
Which I think is a Friends reference.
Yeah, right.
And then did you see that Sina Grace also drew a version of it?
No.
In the back, it shows his version of the cover, even though they had a variant cover.
Kevin Wada did the variant cover.
Okay.
I'm a huge fan of his, so
it was very designed.
I had to get that
high
B
design
cover, baby.
This is just straightforward friends fucking and figuring out their 20s.
Yeah, great modern relationship stuff. I love that Sina Grace is well known for bringing in LGBTQ characters into his comics, and one big compliment that we always give comic book writers is when that feels really natural.
When Sina Grace writes a gay character like Iceman and things like that, and I just am always like, this feels like an actual queer person that I would meet.
And it's the exact thing that we talked about last week with Shang-Chi, that we didn't want Jeff, who grew up in Des Moines his entire life, writing about the Asian American experience.
Right.
Like, when you can have LGBTQ writers writing about the gay American experience and modern relationships and the trans experience and all those things in a real and natural way that makes you connect with the characters, you're always going to benefit from that.
And this is getting way in because I'm a big Sina Grace fan.
Yeah.
He writes the multiple layers of the gay experience too. Like in Burn the Orphanage, there's a really lovable like bear that just is like awesome. And it's like yeah. So when he was on this book, I was just like, yep.
He's a quirky, fun writer.
Mm-hmm.
I do want to say too, and maybe we're staying on this topic too long, but I think it's important that any creators are putting diversity into comic books. That's great. I don't want to make it sound like I think if you're straight, you don't have a license to include or create.
You actually should still be doing that. Yeah,
you should still be doing that, but there's benefit to be had from broadening your horizons and reading independent books with perspectives of those characters written by people who've lived those lives.
Right.
That's kind of the essence of what I'm trying to get at, and that's what I felt in reading this book, that the gay characters weren't used as a device to say they're different. You know what I mean?
Or like a gotcha.
Yes. Or like turns out they were gay the whole time. Like, that reveal is getting very old and trite.
Yeah, it is. I think it's going away.
I think so too.
So one thing in this book that is awesome is there's a reference to sounding. Did you know what that was?
No, I didn't.
Okay, so
I'm already learning. And I've got some stuff to try.
I did, but I was calling it the wrong thing.
Oh, okay.
I was calling it noodling.
Noodling.
Because
I like your name for it better.
Well, this is how naive I am. So sounding is, I believe, where you are sticking something up your urethra, or into your urethra, for pleasure.
Yeah.
I thought somebody once told me that like a dry noodle, like a spaghetti noodle, would be
a good thing to use for that.
Yeah. But there's no way because it would break off and shit, right?
Yeah.
So I got educated that I knew that it had an ing in it. I was just the wrong word was placed there.
When I heard sounding and they explained what it was, I was imagining like a trumpet.
Oh yeah,
where you're going like in and out with a horn.
Yeah.
That's what I pictured. That's why I'm assuming it's called sounding. You play it like it's a little trumpet.
Okay, that makes sense. But they made it although it's funny the way they talk about it, they're not like shaming it, which I love. It's like a sex positive thing.
Yeah. Right. They did have a conversation surrounding like consent in that.
Yeah.
That like somebody was sounding when I woke up and it was someone that I was in a relationship with, but it just didn't feel like appropriate that I wasn't part of it. That story snowballs into something that you find out like there's another side to the story, and then that's really interesting. And
I love this comic to the point that I was even like assessing like, is this the actual comic book that I always want? Like that I like love?
When I put it down, I was like, wow, I haven't read a comic book like this in a minute. I know we say that every once in a while, but it just seemed like its own different thing, and it was so refreshing.
It was that, and one of the beauties of it for me was in the end, the main character has this redemption, and he does like not what you think he's gonna do.
Yeah.
And I think that like it made me fall in love with the main character, and I hadn't up until that moment.
Yes.
And it just was like poetic character development.
The way it ended, I was like, wow, the sweetness of this moment makes me want to buy the next issue instead of a trite cliffhanger that's going to go nowhere.
Right. And I also like being in my mid-30s, looking at my 20s. There is a level of nostalgia there that are awesome.
Isn't it interesting that even as white, cisgendered men, that we can look at something like this now and say, like, I see so much of my 20s in this.
Totally, yeah.
That, like, our parents' generation, I think, and even if you asked me, like, 15 years ago, when I was graduating high school, would I connect with a comic where the lead is a gay character? I don't think that I would. And now, like, I see so much of myself in these characters and look right past that stuff.
I think love was captured, written,
yes.
like the loving experience of
exactly
romance and stuff. So it was great. The design of, I love this move towards immersive design. There's a playlist to listen to, and then there's even a band camp for the main band, which is the best band name ever, Nip Slip.
Yeah.
That has actual music there that you can go and listen to. So I think you can even get a Nip Slip shirt, which if that's the case, I'm definitely buying a Nip Slip shirt.
It's very cool, yeah.
Right up my alley. It goes right well with my Mannequin Pussy shirt that I wear.
What is Mannequin Pussy?
It's like an indie rock band, but I'll tell you what, picking up your 3-year-old daughter at school with a Mannequin Pussy does not get you a lot of brownie points.
I bet.
Yeah.
Yeah, the idea of going to concerts and shows and drama between your friends that are in bands, like, so much fun there. I love that.
Yeah, and that's something that you and I share.
Right.
Was in and out of bands, or record label. You were actually in bands.
Yeah.
And so that was our world, and there was lots of random fucking going on, and people hiding that and figuring that out.
Yep.
And now those people are married with kids and stuff, and hopefully this book goes all the way to that. I want this book to follow these people into their 30s.
Yeah, I hope it goes for years and years.
This needs to beat Spider-Man 850.
Spider-Man stopping today.
Yeah.
And we're going to give this book, 60 years? 45?
I guess,
45-ish years
45
to catch
years,
up to that?
45 years of getting it together.
Okay.
Starting now.
I'll take it.
And we both own the first issue. But fuck us, we bought the B cover.
Yeah, what are we doing?
So, if you can't tell, we like this book.
Loved it. You should read it. Moving on. Next up, we are going to be talking about American Ronin, out on AWA imprint Upshot. If you're not familiar with AWA Upshot, every AWA book seems to be on Upshot, so I don't know why it's an imprint. We talked about that a little bit last time we covered one of their books. Every single one is on this imprint.
So there must be something they're doing with, like,
just AWA that we are not privy to yet.
The people who are in the AWA know, maybe, I don't know, but I know we've talked about this before. They call their issues episodes.
Yes.
They release them in like series forms, and then the trade they consider to be like the season. And so then the season is there. So we we have a troubled past with AWA. They had Bad Mother. Yep. They had the Grendel book that you liked a lot, which I always want to say Grundle. So they have some this season or this recent run of AWA, way good.
When you look at the names attached to AWA, you're like, oh shit, these are people I like.
And they're all authors that we like, including Peter Milligan.
Peter Milligan, man, wrote this book. Do I have to tell you who Peter Milligan is?
Millie, they call him.
Ever heard of Detective Comics or X-Men? He wrote a couple series that I'm like in love with and will like my grave.
He did that run of Shade?
Yeah, the Changing Man, yeah.
Okay.
That's probably his longest running book title that he ever did.
Okay.
He wrote like 70-some issues of it.
Did he?
If I'm not mistaken.
I didn't read. Okay. I didn't realize that.
And then Ecstatics was a series I loved.
Yes.
That went like 30-some issues. So good. So I'm a big fan of his.
When we were in the store today, we went and bought comics together. Spoiler alert behind the curtains is the phrase I was looking for.
Yeah.
Of a guy that only had big 2 books. He picked up the book and he goes, small publisher, but they put out some really good comics. He said that to the comic book store owner. So he believed in it. Whatever AWA is doing, they are crossing that barrier for people.
People are starting to catch on.
Yeah. And I think what they're doing, what they said is like, people want the experience of like watching a show, like they just love shows, and they want that in comic book form. That's what AWA said. And I think, and this was going through my head, that's our crux a little bit with AWA, is like, that's actually not really what I want out of comic books. Yeah. I actually like this book and we can get into it, but like what I want is what Sina Grace did. Like when I want like like indie shit pushing the limits. I'm not the guy who's like, I just want good stories. Just give me good stories, man. Just give me a good story, and then I'll just love it if it's a good story.
The thing is, I'm here for, like, you shouldn't tell a story outside of the medium it's meant to be told for. Like, if you're just seeing comic books as a shortcut to, or an easier way to write a pilot, fuck off. You're writing a pilot, not a comic book.
I'd say fuck off, but also it is a good investment because it pans out.
It does. I mean, there's something with just like having a built-in audience. I think there's something to be said when a production company or a streaming network says comic book show, that immediately they're like, oh, there's going to be tons of people who don't even read comics that know they like comic book shows. And this is automatically on their radar.
And that is 100% what they're banking. And here's, like, we're doing a deep crit on AWA. Both of us have design background and branding background. You can just see in the Upshot and AWA logo, they don't give a fucking shit. Like, about like branding and stuff. They just like want to slap a name on it and move forward and like go for it, right? You know, like the redesigned DC logo and Marvel, those are beauty artworks. They paid firms to do that.
Yeah.
Here they had their like, I don't want to dig shit on AWA, but to me it doesn't like speak that like they care about the high design of comic books. If they are in a panel, I would bet they're gonna say the phrase, "We just want good stories," and that's an okay brand to have.
Yeah, sure.
The good stories indie press.
So TKO, alternatively, another publisher with a lot of buzz, does a similar thing where they're giving good creators around about 5-6 issues to tell a story, and then they're out.
Yes.
That's kind of like how AWA is. But TKO is going from the angle of these aren't going to be weekly comics. There's going to be no limit on the print run. We'll just make more of them. There's no first editions. We're trying to get you to buy the bound version because that's the best reading experience.
Right.
We'll sell you single issues as a collector's item if you're like a mega fan and want to have the more premier thing. But we believe these stories are best read bound in this larger format, and we're letting creators do that here.
Right. And we talked about how Vault is also like a powerhouse now in the indie world.
Right.
They're not, I mean, AWA knows their brand, and it is like comic book guy who's looking for just like the immersive experience of like the first time they watched Breaking Bad, or watching, I don't even know what, The Sopranos. Like, it's like, there's definitely a Venn diagram of that.
Do you think it's harder to like AWA books because there's a sense that they are chasing things that are hard to live up to?
It seems a little it seems a little broed out.
If I come to you saying I'm trying to write the next Walking Dead, and you read my comic, of course you're going to be like, "Oh, fuck off, guy who thinks he's writing the next Walking Dead." One issue of one comic book isn't going to be surmountable to the fandom created by like 120 issues of a series and mega loved TV franchise.
I think that this podcast in general has a very low tolerance for disingenuousness. Well, and for not like being real.
Well, especially because first issues are like our thing.
Yeah.
And we're focused so much on like reading so many new stories every single week. I know we cover 2 every week, but we read
an insane amount,
a crazy amount, and then choose 2 to like talk about.
And the other thing about like AWAs is that in the back of all of them, they basically tell you how they thought of it like a script, and like they talk about it like a movie and stuff. And I think like that's fine to do, and I think it's important to do in some ways because it translates, but it also doesn't. It's not the art form. It's a little bit out of like whack with it.
Yeah.
So Well, yeah, we went. We could have just been reviewing AWA in this segment.
I know, we could have. Should we even get into the book? I'll say that Aiko is the artist. ACO. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. He's done. She. I don't even know. Sorry, I gendered it. They have done work for DC and Marvel. You've probably seen that name. Great artist.
It might be an acronym, like.
I bet it is.
Yeah.
But in any case, this book is about a lone vigilante who can inject life experiences into his veins, essentially, and then he uses those experiences to gain a strategic edge against his targets that he's going after.
And I think the key here, the underlying thing, is that like it's a hero who is very dangerous, whose power is empathy.
And that's an interesting perspective on that.
And empathize, so he can he essentially is injecting a way to be the most empathic to them, and he's just a giant empath.
So yeah, the thing is that he puts himself in situations throughout the comic book where he could probably just point a gun at and shoot his
victim or target.
Target's a better way to put it. I also don't have much perspective on whether I like this main character or not. I don't know that he's I don't know really his motivations or whether he's a good guy or a bad guy. Taking advantage of somebody and showing them fake empathy based on having hijacked their life experiences is very fucked up and cruel. I would much rather someone just shoot me in the head than come at me with all my insecurities and walk me to the edge of a cliff and get me to take a dive because of my perceived shortcomings about myself. That's fucked up.
It is. I mean, this book essentially, and I think it tells you it's the Bourne Identity or it's James Bond, but instead of using prowess or sneaking around or I don't even know, strategic military ops, they use empathy as their way of killing. And that in and of itself is that's a fun book.
Yeah.
And it was fun to read, but it's in some ways it's also just a fun concept to talk about.
Yeah, right.
I like being an empathic person, or I hope to strive to be that. And maybe if I had to murder people for hire, it would literally be the only thing I could fall on, because it's not going to be physical strength.
I like to see that they used multiple people. He had not a target, but a middle person that he also took advantage of to ultimately get to his target. And that was fun to see him preying on that person's life experiences as well.
This is a value buy book because there is a lot in here. A lot of words, a lot happening.
It was a lot. And for something that was so, I guess, high sci-fi is the way I'd put it.
Thriller, maybe?
High sci-fi thriller. Yeah. It did seem like a lot. It probably could have... They probably could have spread that across a couple issues, and I would have been fine with it.
At times, it felt like reading a script or a stage play.
And our main criticism of AWA, I think a lot of their comics, for me anyway, have tonally kind of felt the same. That they're just cramming a lot of story in, just so you get the idea of this world of building for a TV show. I mean, Peter Milligan himself hasn't explicitly said this about this book that I know of, and maybe some of the past books and creators interviews we've read on AWA books are leading us to make this assumption about every creator who publishes on AWA. But at the same time, I'll say we've read a lot of Peter Milligan books, and this didn't read to me like a Peter Milligan book. I wouldn't have guessed in a million years this was one of his comics.
No, it was a little too straightforward, to be honest.
It wasn't funky and fun.
It was kind of just, I think the funky and fun was the obtuseness of the character development.
Yeah.
A lot of that funky fun went into just being what a weird ass comic.
What a concept.
Yeah. And even I love this idea of thinking okay, and he explains it in the author's notes, which is actually kind of fun to read. He was okay, an assassin who is empathic. Well, how is he going to get that empathy? He injects part of their like DNA, like that he has to acquire like saliva into him, like a dope fiend. That experience was cool and fun to look at. It looked interesting. So that was a good, I guess, plot solving device.
Right. I don't know if I don't know if I'll stick with it.
I'm not, but I'm not gonna bash it either. Like I think that somebody could totally enjoy this. I think that if you like action thriller shows, like
it's perfect for you.
You're gonna and there's a lot here, a lot to do. It was not a bad comic in any way.
Yeah.
It just was like maybe not our cup of tea. But,
right.
And we even say that sometimes when it's like we're just trying to be light and be like, oh, but it's actually not a good comic. Here it's like, honestly, this is like seriously not a bad comic.
No, and I'll say if this was like a light period for me where I didn't have a lot of ongoing series I was already buying, I'd totally pick up the next issue of this.
Which is, we shit on AWA for a little bit, but it's like, honestly, this, Bad Mother, and then Grundle.
Grendel County, is that what it was called?
Grendel County,
Something like that.
They actually like have some hits there, so they're working it. Upshot. Sorry, Upshot. I don't mean to. I know that like all the people that work at AWA and that are at Upshot, they want me to say their actual company name because they have a whole division over there. So I'm sorry, AWA Upshot.
Give me a reason to differentiate AWA, and I'll start doing it. All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for tuning in for another week. We love you, baby. If you can't handle this ending and you need just more, we've got a Patreon you can run over to, and we do, on average, about an extra episode a week.
Yep. We're going to do at least Champions #1 by Al Ewing this week.
Yes. The Outlaw event just started, so we wanted to check that out. So we'll be talking about that one this week.
Yep. Stay sane, stay good to yourself, and stay reading comics.
Sayonara.
See ya.
This has been another episode of First Issue Club. We are a proud member of the Fountain City Frequency family of podcasts. Our music is provided by Primary Color Music. We are recorded in KCUR Studios. You can find us, rate us, friend, and follow us on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, email, and your favorite listening platforms at First Issue Club, FIRST.